Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm excited for today's video because today we are going to be going over lessons that I learned moving away from my family. A little bit of a backstory. I moved out of my parents' house in the end of 2020, or I think it was the end of 2021. I can't exactly remember.
This is kind of it. It's just my bed. That's me, my desk, but I'm just showing this because this goes to show that I started off in this tiny little space and I made it work, you know? It shows that if you truly enjoy something, you can make it work anywhere.
It was around the time when the pandemic was coming to an end. You know, life was starting to go back to normal. People were starting to go back to schools and all these things were happening. So around that time, I also dropped out of college because I wanted to pursue social media and entrepreneurship as a whole. And I knew that if I wanted to do that, I couldn't really do it in the comfort of my family's home. I understood from a young age that I needed to leave my family's house, my parents' house in specific, to go and venture out and find who I am as my own individual, as my own self. So this video idea came about from one of you guys actually. In the comments of our last video, I saw a comment that had the most likes saying, we want a breakdown video of you telling us what you learned moving out or how to move out of your parents' house. This entire video is going to be all about that. What did I learn? Lessons that I knew, lessons that I wish I knew earlier, lessons that I learned when I moved out, and just the whole shebang. You know, I think there's a lot of value in videos like this because I'm sure a lot of you guys watching are probably moving out for college, or maybe you want to move out of your parents' house and you want to know what to expect when coming out in the world. So I tried my best to shorten this list down to 5 things. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Also, I don't know if you guys like this new setup, but usually I have the camera positioned over there and I'm sitting right over here, which is like my desk right here. So if you guys see some stuff at the bottom of the frame, it's because I'm like at the corner of my desk, but I thought I'd give you guys some more production value and spice things up. Although I am early in my journey of becoming a man, and I'm early in my journey of figuring things out in my 20s, I'm only 23, I have to remind myself that not to feel bad about the fact that I'm early in my journey. I want to give a little reassurance to all of you guys watching out there that you don't have to have everything figured out. I'm 23 turning 24 this November. And there are people who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars my age. That's one of the small things about social media that you have to remember, that not everything you see online should be the way that your life should be. You don't have to live your life the way that everyone else is living it. You just have to live life that's authentic towards you. And to me, that's something that I'm going to be focusing on in my upcoming years to live. Anyway, let's get right into it. So the first lesson that I learned when I moved out of my parents' house, it's kind of funny, but it's managing my finances. When you live with your parents, they fill up your gas tank, they buy the groceries. The only thing that you need to really worry about is like the clothes on your back that you want to buy, maybe some nice things that you want to buy yourself, or the outings that you have with your friends. And some of your families, maybe your family might even pay for that, but for my family, we didn't. But now that I moved out, I am 100% accountable of everything that I spend and all the money that I make. In our last video, which was 5 principles that I learned early in my teens, one of them was self-accountability. So I'm glad that I never really struggled with that, but it was definitely a reality that hit me like straight in the face. Was when you move out, you have to budget, you have to understand where you're spending, how much you're spending. Could be kind of a scary thing. It still is. I don't think about it. The best way that I go about it is I don't think about my finances. I kind of just focus on making money, and I focus on putting it in areas that it can work for me, and I don't really worry too much about the bills. Obviously, I have to be smart in like where I spend and where I spend my time and everything, but for the most part, I try not to think about it too much, or else it just gets a grasp of you, you know? When it comes to being a young man, being a young adult, you have to manage your finances to a T. Managing your finances is a skill that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. You're going to be taking care of you and your family. I remember when I first moved out, my rent was only $550. Those of you that aren't in America, that is probably like 1/4 of what I'm paying right now. So it was only $550. I remember I was teaching Quran online. So my family has a Islamic learning center in New Orleans. At the time, because it was COVID and we were just coming out of COVID, we opened up classes that were being taught on Zoom, and I was one of the main teachers over there. At that time, I was only making $450 from teaching those kids. I think I had like maybe 5 or 6 kids, and each of them were paying me like $100 each or something like that. I remember telling my dad, hey Baba, I'm going to move to Dallas and I'm going to study at Qalam. I have a little bit of money saved up and you can help me out. He was going to help me out with paying my tuition, but when it came to my lifestyle expenses, I didn't have any handouts. So I was like, rent is only $550. I am making $450 a month from teaching, and then the rest is coming from YouTube AdSense and sponsorships and deals and stuff like that. I can manage $100. If that was my budget. My budget was $450. I didn't think about groceries at the time. I didn't think about oil changes or gas or anything, because these were things that I didn't even understand costed money. I thought like, I'm just gonna move out, life is gonna continue to be the same, and then all I have to pay is rent. That's it. all I had to pay was rent. Yeah, that's point number one. Kind of like the shock of understanding what life actually costs. Like, why is life so damn expensive? You guys ever think about that? Like, why the heck does it cost so much money just to live? Point number two, you can plan, but Allah's plan ultimately prevails in the end. If you're anything like me, probably someone who really is very detail oriented. And if you're very detail oriented, then that means you want your present, your future, you want it to be in a very certain way. That's what I'm trying to get at. So if you want things to be in a certain way, you feel the sense of having to control everything in your power. You want your clothes to be a certain way, you want your hair to be a certain way, you want your friends to be a certain way, you want your car to be a certain way, you want your life trajectory to go in a certain way. But when you move out, life just humbles the heck out of you. And I think anyone that has moved out will agree. When you move out, you think life is going to go a certain way. 3 months in, you understand that, wow, this is not how I thought life was going to be. And marriage is honestly the exact same way. I'll make another video on like marriage and like things that I learned, things that I wish I knew. But when I got married, I thought like I knew everything that needed to be learned. But boy, was I wrong again. And I feel like life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, He just has a way of humbling you over and over and over again. Because there's that saying, the more you learn, the more you understand you don't know. Or something like that, you know. I guess the more that I live, the more that I realize that I don't know what life is going to throw at me, and the best thing that I can do is learn how to control the things that come at me and learn how to control my thoughts and my actions, because that's the only thing that I'm in control of. I'm not in control of anything else. I'm not in control of your emotions. I'm not in control of my wife's emotions or actions, you know. I'm not in control of my parents, how they treat me, but I can control how I receive it, and I can control how I respond to it instead of react to it. A lot of the times people think like, oh my God, life isn't going according to plan. Okay, life might not be going according to your plan. In retrospect, it's actually going according to plan the way that God wanted it to be. And I think reminding yourself that God knows better for you and He loves you 10 times more than your own mother, He's looking out for you like more than a father. That should give you enough comfort of where you're going, you know? So obviously I'm saying tie your camel and make sure you do your due diligence when it comes to, you know, making sure that you're on a good path, but lean into God's path, lean into what He wants for you, and the rest will figure itself out. Point number 3 is keeping in touch with a good Muslim community. So alhamdulillah, I'm not going to lie, when I moved out to Dallas is like literally the Medina of America. If you guys have not visited Dallas, Texas, I 100% recommend you, especially if you live in America. A weekend isn't enough. You need at least a week. And then you have all these things where like Yasin Qadi, Sheikh Omar Suleiman, Qalam Institute is all like located, and they just have so much going on. They have a plethora of just scholars and numerous different communities that you can benefit from. And alhamdulillah, even me as an introvert, I was also able to break out of my shell and make new friends. And it was just a really good place for me to kind of move out, because a lot of the times I see kids that move out for college, or they move out, you know, just for a job, or they move out just to move out, and they don't stick with a Muslim community. And what happens is that their deen was inherited from their family, but it no longer stays with them because they didn't put in any active effort for themselves to be attached to a Muslim community. Like your father and your mother has done the hard work for you, but you have to carry on with that hard work for yourself, or else it's like building a house, right? If your family starts building a house, and you're building a house and building a house, and from a young age you're looking at this house being built, and you're like, yeah, you know, one day this house is going to be built, and you have this comfort knowing that, okay, wow. But then say your parents leave one day and they're like, here beta, here son, here's the house, continue building it. And you're like, okay, yeah, like, you know, the construction workers are going to come, and like Baba has all these things set in place. Over time, construction workers aren't going to come anymore, and over time, like, it's going to rain. And this may not be the best example, but what I'm trying to get at is like, you have to keep painting that picture more and more detailed in order for you to have a good picture in front of you, you know, in order for you to have a good understanding. Attaching myself to a Muslim community is definitely something that I highly recommend and encourage all of you guys, even if you haven't moved out of your parents' house, to go and like go meet friends, go out for halaqas, just go into the masjid and just pray. Don't just spend your time at the masjid only at Jumu'ah, especially if you want to be a community man and you want to be some type of leader. You have to understand what the pains are of the community and what the youth wants and stuff like that, you know. So that is definitely a lesson that I learned. So a little bit of my background is in New Orleans. My family kind of runs the religious scene, and I grew up as a young hafiz on the scene. People always looked at my family and respected my family, so our community kind of was centered around my family, and I was kind of spoiled in that sense. But when I moved to Dallas for the first time in my life, I had to really push myself to go out there and to be of service in different ways to the community. I really had to let go of that sense of entitlement and like that ego of not wanting to go meet other people. It wasn't something that I was used to in the beginning, but alhamdulillah, it worked itself out. Point number 4 is that my relationship with my parents strengthened so much after I moved out. And this is a common theme in Muslim families, is when you live with your father, you don't really have conversations with him. He kind of tells you what to do, you listen. He tells you what to do, you don't listen. You guys fight, but you don't really have communication with your father because you see him every day. He comes into your room, you go into the living room, you see him. There's like this face-to-face interaction. When you move out, that face-to-face interaction is no longer there. Now what happens is you're forced to communicate through the phone. And when you're calling him on the phone or you're on FaceTime, you have no other choice but to have a conversation. And that opens up so many doors and so many avenues, and you start to respect each other a lot more. We used to butt heads a lot growing up. I wanted to go hang out with my friends after Maghrib and he would never let me hang out. I wanted to focus on the gym and fitness and whatnot, and he was just pushing me to go to college. Even with this whole online business stuff, I really wanted to focus and hunker down, and he just wanted me to focus on school, you know, which there's nothing wrong with that, you know, but if we just had our communication be a little bit stronger and a little bit better, I feel like it would have been a lot easier for us to kind of live together. Not saying that we couldn't stand each other, but alhamdulillah, what I'm trying to get at here is my relationship with my father definitely blossomed after. And even my best friend Junaid, he talks a lot about how his relationship with his father was great before he moved out, but it got even stronger because when you move out as a son, it's a really beautiful thing because now your father can kind of guide you and he can kind of mentor you on like what to do, what not to do, and how to move in society. My father is an immigrant. He came to this country not knowing the language, not knowing anybody, not knowing how to move. He learned a lot of lessons himself the hard way, fears and through traumas and through all these hardships. And for me, I just have the ease of it because I have his knowledge and his wisdom. So phone calls with my father definitely now are a part of my life that I look forward to. And every time we're in person, it feels more of a brotherhood and it feels more of an actual relationship rather than just like this dictatorship that we once had. Number 5 is I couldn't be lazy anymore. My friends and I always laugh about it, but we say that when you move out of your parents' house, if I left this bottle over here, my wife will probably pick it up if I leave it here. But before, when I was living alone, if I left this in my room, it's going to stay there. It'll stay there forever. Like it'll stay there for a week, 2 weeks. If I did laundry and I left it in my corner, it'll stay there for weeks on end. You don't have your mom cleaning up after you. You don't have your dad waking you up for Fajr. What that does is it reinforces this sense of accountability again, right? And it reinforces this sense of responsibility that I need to take responsibility and ownership of my life. And nobody's coming to save me again. Nobody's coming to save you because I wake up on my own time. I have all this freedom, but there's a dark side to freedom also, right? You have the good side where it's like you can do whatever you want. You can become whoever you want. You can talk to whoever you want. It all becomes down to your desires. But because you don't have any chains on your desires, that can also be a bad thing because now you're let loose, right? So that's why controlling your desires, controlling your bad habits, controlling your bad character, and all of these things kind of lead up to you becoming who you want to become. When you move out of your parents' house, you have so much time alone. You have so much time to think about yourself. And I encourage you guys, if you guys are out there living alone, just spend time alone. Spend time alone just thinking. Have free thinking periods where you're thinking about the trajectory of your life. Think about areas of your life that you can get better, what needs work. Ask yourself if like you're being lazy or if you're truly living to the edge. And I believe everyone should live at their edge, right where they know like that you're pushing past your failure. I have this quote that says, growth is pushing past the limits of what you thought was possible, but then also the fear of falling back to where you started. And that is what growth is. Living away from your family, when you're a bird and you decide to leave the nest and you learn to fly alone and you learn to make your own decisions. If you do things right, then it can do a lot of good for you. But if you also do things wrong, it'll be the beginning of your downfall. So remember guys, that Rome wasn't built in a day and neither were you. So keep your head down because patience is a virtue and I'm praying for you.